Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for Osteoporosis Canada's Cook with OC webinar. Before we begin, Osteoporosis Canada acknowledges the land that our offices located in Toronto are on is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabeg, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. My name is Tracie Napoli. I'm the Director of Fund Development and MARCOM at Osteoporosis Canada, and I will be your cooking demo host today. We want to thank ThinkBeef.ca for supporting this Cook with OC program. Now, this webinar will provide general information about cooking and food knowledge. It's not intended as individualized health advice or nutrition advice. So if you have questions, reach out to a registered dietitian or to your healthcare provider. Now, during the webinar, we always love to hear from you. So if you have questions or comments related to the content, just click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen, or you can enter your comments in the chat. We'll do our best to answer as many questions as we can during the webinar within the time available. Nutrition is a key component for strong and healthy bones, and at Osteoporosis Canada, our Cook with OC program works to provide you with strategies, new ideas, and develop recipes to help you get the nutrients needed for good health. Have you used the nutrient calculator yet? You can access it on the Osteoporosis Canada website, or you can download the nutrient calculator on your smartphone. It's got information and will help inform you if you're getting enough calcium, vitamin D, protein, magnesium, and vitamin K daily. Just visit the Osteoporosis Canada website at osteoporosis.ca/nutrient-calculator. Now, did you know, I'm sure you do, that protein is an important energy source, and it's also an important nutrient that plays a big role in bone and muscle health and in the prevention and management of osteoporosis. Beef is a complete protein, and many essential nutrients are packed into each small serving and provides nutrients that are difficult to get from other foods like iron, zinc, and vitamin B12. We always get asked, how much protein do we need? So it is a calculation, and don't worry, I'm going to refer you to the website, but also to the nutrient calculator that does it for you. So the protein recommended daily, you take 0.8 grams of protein and you divide it by your body weight, or you can do that by pounds, depending on what you prefer to use, kilograms or pounds. And you multiply your weight by that number for kilograms, 0.8, or you multiply it in for pounds by 0.364. It's an easy calculation. You can find this at osteoporosis.ca/protein. The easier way to do this is if you download the nutrient calculator or you use it on the website. The tool will ask you your age, your sex, your weight, and then it does the calculation for you. So you'll find out. So there's a couple of different ways for you to get that information. And so now we're going to jump into the cooking demo, and our featured recipe is a Bulgogi-Style Braised Beef with Bok Choy. And each serving has 125 milligrams of calcium, 31 grams of protein, 58.5 micrograms of vitamin K, and 60 milligrams of magnesium. And you can find this and other recipes on the website. I will also put the link to the recipe into the chat. And did you know that 1/2 cup serving of bok choy has 84 milligrams of calcium? There's a fun fact. It's a delicious fact. All right, so now it's my pleasure to present our friend, Emily Richards, who's a professional home economist, freelance food writer, chef, and author and co-author of 11 cookbooks. She's actually celebrating the anniversary of one of those cookbooks that we've been chatting about. So congrats to Emily. So Emily writes and develops recipes for print and online publications that include everyday cooking and healthy eating. And she can be found on TV, radio, and webcasts, just like this one. Hi, Emily.
Hey Tracy, hey everybody, how's it going?
Well, I apologize for my voice. I know what I sound like. I'm getting over what's going around right now. 'Tis the season. So I was very mindful to speak slowly to avoid the big coughing fit. So there we go. I hope everyone is feeling well wherever you're from today. How you feeling, Emily?
I'm doing okay. I'm a little chilly, so I put a little, a
Oh,
shirt on. But as many of you know, once you start cooking, it gets a little hot, so it might come
yes.
off as we get going here. So I'm really cooking, so the heat will definitely get going.
Oh, it always does when we do these. And before Emily jumps in, because I love to braise. So this is one of my favorite ways to cook. And we're going to give, our apron away, one of our aprons to who's ever on at the end. You will find out. And we've got our regulars on because they're kind of jumping and telling us where they're from. Where are you from? Tell us where you're from. Somebody's from Winnipeg. They've already let us know. Augustine. Hi, Augustine in Winnipeg. We'd love to know where everyone's from, so feel free to share.
Yes, for sure. And if you do have questions as we go along, please feel free to post them in the Q&A, right, Tracy?
They are, oh, they're everybody's Victoria, Saskatoon, Barrie. Oh, we've got so many people. Belleville. Awesome. So I'll keep looking at those. I'm going to let you go ahead, Emily, unless you have you want to hear more of this. Or do you want to hear more of
We'll br
this?
I promise we'll bring Tracy back so we can hear her voice. I always think that when someone has a little tickle in their throat or, a little bit of stuffed up in their nose, that's their sexy voice. So think of it that way, Tracy. It's so much
I don't
better.
know. Well, no, we're gonna have to figure that one out anyway. Okay, and here we go. Away we go. Thanks,
Thanks, Tracy. Thanks, everybody, for joining me today. This is a delicious recipe. It's bulgogi-style braised beef with bok choy. So if you've heard the term bulgogi, it's very kind of common now in many restaurants, in Korean restaurants in particular. But the flavor of it, you can actually purchase the sauce in store and use it as a stir fry sauce, and it has quite a lot of depth of flavor, which works beautifully with beef. Beef has its own kind of big flavor. So oftentimes, when you're braising, you may think of things like red wine or a little bit of a stronger flavored sauce like bulgogi. And the ingredients are actually quite simple. That's what I love about braising. You can use a cut that perhaps you may think, well, I don't really know what to do with it. And it is sometimes an underutilized cut, or it can be a cut that needs a little bit of marinating and a little bit more flavor. But most importantly, it needs that long, slow cook to produce that beautiful texture so that the beef falls apart and it has that really, really moist texture after cooking. So this recipe takes a couple of hours to create that. And while it's braising, it does create a beautiful flavor, and the beef absorbs the bulgogi sauce, and then it just kind of tenderizes it. So we're going to start off. And this is a one pot meal, essentially. We are going to be cooking the bok choy separately because we want all the sauce to stay in the pot. The first thing that you may notice is that it says in a large Dutch oven. So a Dutch oven is simply a large pot with a lid. Okay, so whether you have a cast iron one, a stainless steel one, there's lots of different versions of them. You just need something that's large enough with a lid because we're using about 4 pounds of beef short ribs. Now, that sounds like a lot. It's 2 kilograms. It's basically 6 pieces because this is going to serve 6 people. And the reason why it's a little bit larger than, let's say, a recommended, 500 grams approximately for 4 people is because there's bones in it. So the other option here is to use a boneless cut of beef. And what I did was I brought both to show you. um, and so these are our beef short ribs. Okay, so if I lift this up here, you'll see this flat part here. That's the bone. And then look at how much beef is in there. So it has this beautiful cut. Now, you may also find boneless short ribs. So you can use that for this recipe too. And I already browned some, so that's why I only have a couple here. But I wanted to point out that if you can't find the short ribs, that there's other cuts that you can use. So you can look for oxtail is a great example. And that one, if you really love some added collagen, that's a great one to use for braising because as it cooks, all that collagen comes out. Another one is beef shanks. Some some of you may have cooked ossobuco before, and that has the marrow inside. So again, that little bit of extra collagen that comes out. And that's another great substitute to braise in this recipe. Now, and those both have bones. So short ribs, oxtail, and ossobuco or beef shank does have bone in it. Now, if you're looking for something boneless, you can kind of open the door a little bit more there. And so I picked up this blade roast. So for those of you that love pot roast, that's kind of what we're talking about here. We're doing that nice long slow cook to create that beautiful tender texture for the beef. So this is an inside roast, but you could use a chuck roast. You could also use what's called a chuck flap tail or a Denver steak for this recipe. And the meaning is that because of the cut of beef, it needs that nice long slow cook, that braising that we're going to do. So here I picked this one up and it was kind of already cut in half a little bit oddly. So all you have to do is cut it into similar sized pieces. Okay, so you're going to need about 2.5 to 3 pounds for 6 people. If you're going to be, you can even go as low as 2 pounds of boneless beef if you didn't want to use the bone in. Okay, so this is about 2 pounds that I would easily cut into 6 pieces. So I'm just going to show you what I would do. So this one, because it already had a bit of a cut in there, I'm just going to follow that cut. But basically, I'm just going to follow the lines a little bit of the beef and cut it into similar size pieces. So nice large chunks. Okay. And then I'm going to flip this one over. Maybe this one I'll get 5 pieces just because this one's a little bit larger. Okay. And so you can treat the exact same method that we're going to use with the short ribs for any pot roast that you're going to pick up. Okay. So I wanted to start off with that right from the get-go because I love giving options for people and also looking for things on sale. So pot roasts are something that go on sale quite frequently, especially as we go into those cooler months where people are thinking about slow cooking and also those great comfort foods. So this is a wonderful option. And if there's larger chunks of fat, you can trim those as well. But if you take a look inside, see all this beautiful marbling? That's really what gives us that great texture when we're cooking with beef. Okay. So I'm going to put this one aside and I'm going to continue on with our short ribs. I'm just going to give my hands a wash because I want to season these short ribs before we get started. So these flavors are fairly strong. We're going to actually brown the beef with sesame oil, and that flavor is going to start off the process right from the beginning. We're going to get that really nice toasted sesame flavor. So I'm going to add a little bit of fresh black pepper, okay, and then also some salt. Don't use too much of this. Can you believe I said that? Don't use too much salt because we are using some soy sauce here too. And so I just like to have a fairly light hand with the seasoning, but you can definitely add a little bit more pepper, especially if you want to spice it up a little bit. Okay. And then what I have is my Dutch oven ready to go. So you may notice that in my Dutch oven, um, I already have that nice kind of golden brown happening, and that's from me previously browning some of the short ribs. Okay. So again, that about 4 pounds of beef short ribs will be approximately 6 pieces. So you could even go into a butcher and say, I would like 6 beef short ribs. And that's what you'll get. So you don't have to kind of determine if they're a little bit less, that's totally okay, because these really do have that. I think it's a very hearty texture, even for a smaller piece. So if you wanted to, you could extend this to even 8 people if you wanted, if you had some unexpected guests. Does anyone still have that anymore? I know sometimes I do, and I love it. I think it's quite fun to have those unexpected guests arrive. All right, so there's a little bit of, you can see that nice browning in the pan that I have from the short ribs that I already did. and that little bit of residual sesame oil that's still in there. So I'm going to brown these first. So that's something that's quite common with a lot of beef cuts, stewing beef. For example, if you were making a beef stew, I always like to brown the beef first, and that really kickstarts the flavor. And it also gives us this wonderful pan caramelization that happens. It's just going to add more flavor into the broth itself. So I'm starting off kind of meatier side down in my pan here. Okay. And I have the recipe here because I've made it, but you never know. I I always think that I'm gonna forget an ingredient, and I think some of you have caught me forgetting ingredients. So keep an eye out. Um, you do have the recipe, but if you need to find it again, Tracie will put it up in the chat, so the link will be there for the recipe, or you can go to osteoporosis.ca and find this beef recipe with a lot of other ones. So I think beef is great for that protein that we're looking for. And this recipe is kind of perfect as we enter into those cooler months. But this is a great entertaining recipe. If you wanted to switch it up, let's say over the holidays, and you were going skiing with friends and you want to kind of come home to a great supper, this is fabulous. Now, for those of you that love your slow cookers or your instant pots, you can definitely make this recipe in there as well. But this process I would still do. So oftentimes a lot of people have their slow cooker because you can throw everything in there and then just kind of forget about it. But this really does build flavor. So I would recommend that you still brown the beef before putting it into the slow cooker. Okay. So I'm going to make sure I brown, or at least try to brown all sides. So you want that nice deep caramel color on all sides of the beef. And in the meantime, we're going to get our sauce together, okay? Because this does really come together quickly. So it comes together even more quickly if you have everything measured out. This doesn't take very much time. You know what takes, okay, I take that back. You know what takes a lot of time is peeling a whole head of garlic. So that's really probably the longest amount of time. So if you have someone at home that's going to, needs a little job, get them to peel the head of garlic for you. Or if you buy peeled garlic, or if you have some in the freezer, you can use that. A head of garlic ranges anywhere from 10 to 12 cloves. Okay. So, if you don't want to break into, or let's say you don't have a full head of garlic and you have kind of some loose garlic, about 10 to 12 cloves is what you're looking for. So I already have them peeled and I'm going to put that in there. So what's great about this is that there's a lot of garlic, but it's a delicate garlic flavor that comes through because we haven't minced it all. You're welcome to mince it if you'd like, but it really becomes a little bit overpowering of garlic. So if you do want to mince it, or if you're popping it into your food chopper, I would use about half the amount of garlic, and you can still add that to the sauce. Okay. Then we're going to add 3 tablespoons of minced ginger. So again, if you have ginger that you purchase already minced, you can just measure that out. Or if you wanted to put it in your food chopper to mince it, you could definitely do that. I'm just going to flip over our short rib again. And now you can really start to see, I'm going to show you how gorgeous this color is. I'm going to bring it right up here to show you. Look at that. It's just picks up, that's just that little bit of browning that gives it that great color and starts to build the flavor. Then we're going to add some brown sugar, okay? And some green onions. So green onions, you don't have to chop them finely because they are cooking for a long time. And so they will break down. But if you chop them too finely, then you won't be able to see them. So it's nice to have a little bit of color in the sauce as well. And then I'm adding 2 tablespoons of rice vinegar. So this is plain rice vinegar, not seasoned rice vinegar. Seasoned rice vinegar has sugar and salt in it. And because we're adding both salt and sugar to the mixture, by seasoning the beef and also the sugar in here, you don't need to use the seasoned rice vinegar. If you don't have rice vinegar, you could use a cider vinegar very easily. Okay, so you don't have to go out and buy rice vinegar if you don't have it. Then I'm adding half a cup of soy sauce. So this is what gives the sauce that kind of traditional dark color. So if you've seen bulgogi sauce in a bottle in the store, you'll see it's really, really dark. it's because of the soy sauce that's in there. Now, if you have soy sauce that is low sodium, great, you can use that here. If you have regular soy sauce, that's okay too, because we're adding 2 cups of water to this. Okay. So that essentially is diluting the sauce. And we're just going to stir that all together. Now, I'm going to tell you about the slow cooker and the Instant Pot because I know there's people that love those appliances. So if I was doing it in the slow cooker, what I would do is brown my short ribs as I'm doing, and then I would put those into my slow cooker, make the sauce, pour the sauce into the slow cooker, close the lid, and we'll see in, 5 to 6 hours. And so that's as easy as done for a slow cooker. For an Instant Pot, you can brown the short ribs right in the Instant Pot, although they tend to be kind of small. So if you feel more comfortable, you could do it in a pan and then do the exact same thing, put them in the Instant Pot with the sauce. And then that you can reduce the cooking temperature because it's a pressure cooker. So you might be looking at cooking these for under an hour. It depends on your pressure cooker. There are recommendations based on the um, Instant Pot or pressure cooker that you're using. Okay. And then just let it cook. But I'm doing it the traditional way of having started it on the stove. So I'm going to add all my browned short ribs back into the pan. And if you do have some juices, get those into the pan as well, because those will add lots of flavor. Okay. And then in goes our sauce. Now, the thing about braising, when you take a look at my pan here, you'll notice that it doesn't, maybe you can't tell, but you can see how it's peeking up outside of the sauce itself, and that's okay. So what we want to do is bring this to the boil or to the simmer, and then we're going to put it into a 325-degree oven. So I already have the oven on, and we're going to make a switch or a swap, and I'm going to show you what it looks like after those 2 hours of cooking. What's great about braising is that the braising liquid offers up the flavor, and in this case, a deep color into our beef, and it keeps everything nice and moist. So you don't need to have it kind of covering it. This will vary on the size of pot that you're using. So once you see that you have this much beef, check out the pot that you're going to use. So you might not need a large pot like this. It's a little bit smaller. You'll see the one that I pull out is a little bit smaller, so the liquid will come up a little bit higher. But if it's not covering, if it's not kind of sitting in the liquid, that's okay. I just want to reassure you that it doesn't have to be right submerged. Okay. So there's a few bubbles happening here. So I'm going to cover this, and then I'm going to make a little switch. In the meantime, while I do this, are there any questions so far? Because that was a big, long haul. Tracie's probably got a drink of water, so she's probably okay to talk.
I'm drinking something. Yeah, no, of course it's water. So yes, no, actually we did. And I want to thank Patricia. So she's following along with the recipe. In the ingredient list, just to avoid any confusion, the amount of water, pardon me, the amount of water listed is 1 tablespoon. It
No,
lists 2 cups in the preparation instructions.
yes.
So apologies for that. We will update that on the website, but it is all laid out. So, which is also why it's good to read your recipe in full before you start in general, because I've come up with this with other things. So, yes, there is that. And just while Emily's doing that, we have people from, I just wanted to share, we have some people who are traveling and they've decided to check in. So, Donna from Toronto, she's in Austin, Texas right now.
Oh,
And
awesome.
we have people from Belleville, Tillsonburg, Montreal, Edmonton. And there's somebody who's vacationing in Costa Rica who's watching us as well. And I think they're from Ontario. I could be wrong. Sorry about that. And also Gisela from Los Alamos, New Mexico.
Oh,
Hello.
well, welcome. Hello,
Yes, we've all
everybody. And
Winnipeg. Oh, from Edmonton, Angie. Sorry, Edmonton. Angie, Edmonton. Okay, I've been drinking like just water, I swear. Oh my God, this cold. I hope you guys are all healthy. Um, but here's a good question. And so I wanted to, because Emily's talked about different cuts. This braising is not made for really tender, lean, like filet of beef. You braise tough cuts of meat, which you couldn't just quickly flash fry. I know I tried once and I actually called Emily and said that didn't work. It was awful. Because it was so tough, the meat. So somebody's saying, what's the leanest cut of meat to braise with? So, pardon me, couple of things. I will braise the day before I serve it often, and then it's easy to skim off the top, the fat that's there if you want to take that out, which I often do. But also, it's really easy if you're looking to break up, if it's too much for you to cook and prep and clean and serve if you're using this for a group, but even just for yourself, it tastes better the next day too. Just FYI, I find it's just so delicious. So, Emily, like, let's talk about the beef cut. Like, you don't want to use the most expensive lean cut for braising.
No, this is not where you're celebrating, a prime rib roast or a strip loin roast. Those roasts, those beautiful, you see beautiful photos of them.
Yeah.
You want to serve those kind of medium rare or to your liking, medium, for example, and you're slicing them an oven roast. The best way to do those is to start at 450 degrees for about 20 minutes and then turn it right down to 275 and let it cook to temperature of your liking. So if you like
Yeah.
medium rare or rare, exact those types of things. So those ones are those beautiful tender cuts and roasts that we want to do that. For this type of braising, and as I'm pulling out the last one here, you'll see that it's so tender that the bones have just kind of completely fallen off. So I'm trying to be very careful as I pull them out. And I will take out this bone too, because we need the sauce. And so for this type of thing, the leanest, I believe that was the question, the leanest
Yeah.
cut that you can use is an eye of round, for example. So that is a super lean cut, but it does benefit from having that long braise. However, it does have the uniqueness of cooking it in that prime rib or strip loin style as well. But that one, you really have to make sure that you cook it to medium rare because if you cook it any more than that, it will kind of tend to give you that tougher cut, or sorry, that tougher texture. And we don't want that. We want to enjoy that and have that versatility. So eye of round has, the cusp that it can go on both.
Yeah.
But this definitely, if you're looking for those sales in where you buy your beef in the grocery store, where there's pot roasts, inside roasts, blade, chuck roasts, those type. Any of them are perfect. And you, as I said, you can also trim some of the excess fat that's there if you want. But also don't forget that fat does add flavor. And in this case, because you're browning it, you're going to render off some of that fat and then you're going to skim off the fat from the sauce as well. So you have kind of 2 points there that you're kind of letting that fat naturally render, give it off a little bit of flavor, but then you can also remove some in the sauce as well. Does that help?
So, no, that's great. And because so we're getting people with other cuts that they're asking about. So, a couple of things. If you can find these types of cuts of meat on sale, as Emily was saying, we love it when people are like, oh, popped it in my freezer. Because if you're getting a really good deal, and braising is something you can use with all different types of flavor profiles. So there's lots of different recipes out there, and it's essentially the exact same process. It's just the flavors that you want to enjoy for that day. Now, someone's asked me, I've never actually heard of beef finger meat. Are you familiar?
Oh,
What
yes.
is that?
So it is usually sold in long kind of strips, often between the ribs itself. So it has
Oh,
longer, and that one is well marbled as well. So that actually would be a great cut for this too. So you can cut it into those similar sized chunks, brown it, and then let it cook away as well. So that is fabulous. Now, the one thing, I'm just going to keep this
Yeah.
meat kind of warm back here because we need the sauce to cook our bok choy. Um, the other thing is that if you go to ThinkBeef.ca, there's great information there that will help you with some of those cuts. And there's a whole section on different braising recipes from different cultures because they tend to use those underutilized cuts. And it's a perfect way to kind of try out new flavors, especially if you like kind of, this is definitely Asian inspired. So having those types of flavors and think of things like tagine, for example. That's a great one too, that you're going to use, let's say, those beef shanks and get and build out the texture, but that's a bit more tomatoey with spices, for example. So it's great that you mentioned that, Tracie, because you can kind of take braising and change the flavor of it quite easily. And once you I don't want to say master because I feel like you don't really have to master anything. You just have to let it cook. Once you cook one or two, you'll realize that it's a great way to have a delicious meal. And in this case, if it makes a lot and there's only one or two of you, this freezes beautifully. So you can
Absolutely.
actually slice it off the bone. You can shred it. This is a great one if you want to make a bulgogi style taco, for example. You can take the meat, cut it up, and then add some coleslaw and kimchi if you wanted, and serve it up that way. And so you just kind of go with the flow. We're doing it a little bit more of a traditional style where it's the meat itself with the bok choy and some rice would be beautiful. But I've also served this with polenta, which I absolutely love. And I would sneak in a little bit of milk in there to make my polenta extra creamy and also bump up the calcium, which is super easy enough to do.
And the last cut of meat, so this actually came in when people were registering. They wanted to know, could you do this kind of recipe with ground meat? How would that?
Yes. I think you definitely can use ground beef for this. And what I would do is cook off the ground beef. And again, you can season it with a little salt and pepper, make the sauce, and then depending on how much ground beef you're making, you probably won't need all of the sauce. And then just let it cook. And you can do that. So obviously ground beef will cook a lot quicker. You won't need to braise that, but I would definitely let it simmer for 15 minutes, even half an hour, because that will kind of merge with the beef and create a beautiful flavor and intensify. And it'll also, if you're doing it in a skillet, it will thicken. And you'll get a very, very kind of glossy look, which is delicious. And again, you can serve that with rice and the bok choy still, or you could just take that, tuck it into a little tortilla, and it would be absolutely delicious as well. So sometimes, thinking outside the box a little bit is perfect. And what I love from doing these webinars is that as much as, Tracie and I talk about substitutions and options, you guys always have great ideas. So, and I think ground beef, especially because that goes on sale a little bit more frequently, and you might have some in the freezer and you're thinking, I have all these ingredients for this sauce, but I only have ground beef. So there's no reason why you can't give it a try because it'll be absolutely delicious. Okay. So you can see that this is the sauce that is remaining now. I took all the short ribs out. I covered it with foil. And if you want, you can, tuck it away for tomorrow if you wanted to, but we're going to keep going because I know you guys got things to do. So we're going to cook our bok choy. So the bok choy that I'm using, this is Shanghai bok choy. So if you take a look at it, it tends to be a little bit greener than the traditional bok choy that's very white and dark green on top. So either one will work. We're using a baby version. If all you can get is the full size version, just chop it coarsely. There's also these cute little mini ones. And I love using those. And I usually just cook those whole because they're so wonderful. But these I did cut in half. And I do get questioned often about bok choy and cleaning it. And sometimes it can be quite difficult. So the best thing to do, I'm going to show you here. So just cut it in half and open it up. And you can trim the stem end here a little bit too, because sometimes that needs to be cut. And then what I do is I put some cold water in the sink or in a large bowl, and I kind of just, um, the word in Italian is coming to my head. It's called squishacqua, but that's not what you rinse. You rinse it in the sink. Sometimes these words pop into my head, and then I just let them soak so that more of the if there's any residual dirt in there that it'll come out. So I tend to get this done ahead of time so that when I'm ready, it's kind of all good to go. And that's what I have here. I have my 6 bok choy ready to go in my bowl. And again, you can do this ahead of time if you want. If you want to keep them in the fridge that way, and maybe you only need to cook a couple of them tonight. I'm just going to change my butane here to make sure that I have enough um, gas to cook. And then we're going to pan fry our bok choy. Now, if you didn't want to do this separately, you could actually just add the bok choy right to the pan and let it simmer away. But I like doing this because it gives you a little bit more char from the pan frying that happens in the pan itself. So I started with sesame oil in browning the beef, and now I'm just going to use the remaining tablespoon of sesame oil to get the bok choy started. Okay, so I'm just going to heat that up. And in the meantime, we're going to kind of divide the sauce a little bit here. We're going to use half with the bok choy, and then I'm going to thicken the other half to kind of spoon over top of our short ribs. And that's really how easy this is. So I'm just going to start adding my bok choy here, and I'm going to see if they'll all fit. They might not all fit, and that's okay. If they don't, you can always just do it in batches or a little bit less bok choy. And if you wanted to kind of make this easy on yourself, chop these all up, stir it into the sauce, and then add the cornstarch mixture, and then kind of just serve the short ribs on top. I'm all about kind of taking shortcuts sometimes, especially if, you just want to get dinner on the table and you've had, the smell of amazing beef in your kitchen for 2 hours and you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to eat it. Sometimes it's worth it. Okay, so I'm just going to squeeze these in. And as we know with greens, sometimes it looks like, oh my gosh, it's all these greens, but they do tend to cook down. And what you can do while this is happening, or while your short ribs are just finishing up, let's say the last 15 minutes, you can put on a pot of rice or some rice noodles if you wanted to serve with it and kind of have your full meal going. If you have a rice cooker, that's a great place to kind of just get your rice going and have it waiting, which is what I've done. It's kind of off to the side here, ready to go. And then what I'm going to do is take out some of my sauce here. So if I were to estimate how much sauce was in here, I'd say it's probably less than 2 cups. So I'm going to take about half of it. And I'm also going to take all that goodness that we put in it. So if you take a look, there's some of that, the whole garlic cloves are in there, and they're going to be so soft. So they're going to add some wonderful flavor and a little bit of texture and creaminess. Okay, so I'm going to take about half of this. And as you're doing this, you can kind of keep an eye out for the fat. Okay, so I don't know if you're going to be able to see this from the side, but I can see that there's a little bit of fat on top of here. So what I like to do is, if you have one of those gravy separators, if you make gravy a lot, you probably have one, and it tends to keep the fat away so that you can just pour it out. But if you don't, you can just take a spoon, and I'll just do this over here and spoon this out. So I just kind of tilt this, and I'm going to remove some of that fat on top. So you can do this in the pot. You can do this outside of the pot, whatever's easy for you. But remember, Tracie mentioned that braising, and then keeping it to the next day. So if you were to do that with this recipe, you'd get a nice bit of solid fat on top that you could just lift off the next day. Okay. So there's also that as an option as well. So if you're planning to make this ahead, which I always think it is, it's delicious the next day. But I do have to tell you that if you make this and you have leftovers, and then this is what I want you to do. So this isn't part of the recipe, but I think it's delicious. So you take the meat, chop it all up or shred it, And then if you have leftover bok choy, you just chop it up into small pieces, stir it into the meat, and then go buy yourself some dumpling wrappers or wonton wrappers. And you make the most delicious dumplings that are fabulous. So don't, if you want to freeze it and do that later, you can do that too. But it's just a wonderful beef and bok choy dumpling that you can make and then change up the meal. It'll look completely different. No one will ever know. Okay. So I'm gonna get something to turn these guys. All right. I'm just gonna make sure that I'm doing this right because I haven't heard any comments that I'm not doing it wrong or right. Okay, there we go. So these already started to cook down a little bit, and I can smell the sesame oil. That's kind of one of my favorite parts here. And if you don't have sesame oil, don't worry about it. You could just use a regular oil that you have at home. You can see it's getting a nice little bit of golden brown color on our bok choy here. And you can see as soon as I turn them that they definitely are fitting into the pan much easier. There we are. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my sauce. I like a little bit of crunch to my bok choy. You can cook them a little bit longer. So it says 2 to 3 minutes, and that's going to give you a nice tender, crisp bite to the bok choy. But if you want them done a little bit more, you can cover them and steam them, and it'll get a little bit more tender. So I'm just going to add my sauce in here all over. Get those nice bits of garlic in there too. And then I'm going to whisk together my cornstarch. So this is that tablespoon of water and tablespoon of cornstarch. Okay, so I'm just going to stir that together. And I'm only using half of this in this mixture. So I'm just going to kind of get to the bottom of the pan here. Take about half of this mixture and stir it around. And then I'm just going to make sure that it kind of coats my bok choy. Okay. Now, if you wanted to, you could just do this as a side dish. If you, let's say, were purchasing some bulgogi sauce or frankly, any other of your favorite sauces or a little bit of, you could do this with a little bit of beef broth or vegetable broth if you wanted to, and just have this as a delicious side dish. Because as Tracie mentioned, you're getting calcium from bok choy. And a lot of people, they tend to stick to the classic greens that they love. But bok choy's got great texture, great color, and it really absorbs flavor that you give it. So in this case, the beautiful bulgogi sauce. Okay. And just like that, these guys are done. Okay. So I'm just going to let them cook a smidge more. And then what I'm going to do is put our sauce on the stove to finish our sauce for our short ribs. So what do you think, Tracie? Is it looking okay so far?
I think so. I just, we were joking before we got on. I'm not a big fan of broccoli. For those of you that are, good for you. But because people go, I eat broccoli, good for you. I like bok choy. So that's why it's also, you'll find it in many of our recipes. You'll find broccoli. You'll also find bok choy and some other vegetables that have other nutrients that we're looking for. So if you're starting to change, as we always say, we build the recipes so that the nutrient profile at the end per serving is whatever is listed in the recipe. You can go ahead and you can decide, well, maybe I'm going to make broccoli instead of bok choy or green beans or whatever it is that you want. That is okay. You just need to make sure that you're tracking what you're eating throughout the day. One meal isn't going to make or break your day or your week. You just kind of need to figure out where you're going to be making up. If you are removing certain things or if you're swapping out other ingredients and maybe you're not sure, the nutrient calculator is a great way to make sure you're getting what you need. So no, I think that's great. It looks really good. Now, we've been talking. It always takes longer when we're talking. aside from the braising part of it, which essentially you're not boiling it for the time, you're low and slow. You want to make sure you don't boil it or it's just gonna just you're gonna
So that
be able to
I
toss
didn't
that right across the room.
I didn't mention that we are braising at 325.
Yes.
So it is a lower oven temperature. And I'll be honest with you, you can do this on the stove top, but it
Oh
tends
yeah.
to be a little bit tricky because sometimes, you walk away and especially if you have an electric stove, it goes up and down. And so it could scorch and then you have to kind of be more attentive. So in this case, having it in the oven is a little bit of a more relaxed cook for everybody and because it's always constant, it's at that 325. Very similar to if you're using a slow cooker or an instant pot, it's staying at that same temperature for a certain amount of time. And not to mention the aroma that fills the house, which is absolutely amazing, which is what I love. Do I have a little bit of power left in this one. All right. So I this is the sauce now,
Okay, let's
Tracie.
look over. All right, Roy.
And all I did was I kind of mashed a little bit of garlic, those whole, and they came apart beautifully. And then I'm just going to stir in the rest of my cornstarch here. So this is not meant to be kind of super thick. This just kind of gives it a bit of a gloss and it gives it a little bit of body. And this is also great to stick with the cornstarch because it's also gluten free. So if you have some gluten free family members, this is a great little kind of oomph of flavor for the gravy itself. Now, I think I'm out of power. I'm out of juice here again. I can tell by the aroma. So I'm just going to change this one more time. I think I'm on the end of my butane run. That's why. And you won't have to do this, of course, because you're going to be doing this on your stove. Let's see. Oh, wait, hang on. I lied. There we are. Perfect. So you just want to cook this for a couple minutes so that it thickens a little, and then it's ready to plate up. So I'm going to bring over the short ribs that I have kind of sitting back here waiting for us. And if you wanted to, you could take the short ribs and put them back into the sauce and coat them with the sauce. But I think it's really nice to kind of just serve it over top. If you don't want to keep them warm like this, you could always put them in a low oven. Just make sure they are covered so that they don't dry out, because you want to have that nice tender texture. Okay. So, oh, I'm gonna just go grab. I found these cute little plates that I had, and I thought it would be perfect to serve the bulgogi in today because it has a little bit of a lip on it. So if you had like a shallow pasta bowl, this would be nice because then you could get a little bit of extra sauce in there. And so I'm going to start off. I did make some rice, Tracie, because I just thought this is perfect for rice.
We just want to hit all the details. We want to show you all the possibilities. And I'm like Emily, I love dishes, but I also like sauce. I like a bit of a saucy finish. So
So
let's see here. All
so
right.
here is my this is bubbling up nicely. So it's got a nice little bit of body to it. So there's a little bit of rice. And then I'm going to, there are my tongs. I'm going to put a couple pieces of bok choy off to the side here, just like that. And then you can also take some of this sauce and put some on there. But I'm going to grab one of our short ribs here. And it's okay if it loses a bone because, you're not going to eat the bone. But so I'm going to take this one that already lost its bone and see if it'll stand up for me. And then I'm going to take some of our thickened bulgogi sauce and just ladle it over top like that. Can you see what I'm doing? I should come closer here so that you guys can see what I'm doing. And then just pour that over top. Okay. And then that's like so people go to restaurants to have this meal, guys. You can do this at home and save lots of money and invite some of your friends. And then they might become so jealous that they'll want to come to dinner all the time. So this is a winning meal as far as I can tell. And then what you can do is if you have a little bit of sesame seeds, that just because we did use all those lovely that sesame oil. You can add a little bit of toasted sesame seeds on top, or even some nuts. If you have some peanuts or cashews, you can sprinkle a little bit of nuts. Some fresh cilantro on here, or parsley would be delicious too. And this is a fork and knife meal, and perfect for, I'm going to say, under double digit weather. Today it's over, it's double digit weather, but in the minuses, this would be a great meal too.
Well, I think it's safe to say we'd all want to go to Emily's for dinner. So I don't see any problem with that. I would actually, that's my kind of cooking right there. I love all of that together. So you're gonna have to do it for us
Oh, yes, I got to get a
because I
fork
don't
and a
want
knife.
anyone emailing me asking why you didn't taste it. Oh, because it's happened before. We're like, Emily did not taste the recipe. Look how
Oh, so
tender.
yeah,
Roy,
so
can
I'm
you do
gonna,
an overhead?
yeah, I'm
Roy's
gonna
our
bring it closer to
webmaster.
the
That's why I
camera
keep saying,
because
Roy, look how tender that was when you cut into it.
so you can see how beautiful it is inside. And it just, so this is what I
Mm,
mean. You can slice it, but you can still shred it. And it really does have that versatility of so much more because we've given it the time to cook nice and slowly and build flavor.
yeah,
And I think that's what people love about, we think sometimes we love, Aunt May's pot roast or grandma's, slow cooker stew, that type of thing. But and we do love these people. However, it is because they're slow cooked and they're braised and they build flavor and aroma in the house, which then builds the memories of who's making them. So you guys should help and build those memories and have these delicious food items like beef. And now I'm going to eat it, Tracie, because
exactly.
I'm talking
And
too
you go
much.
ahead, you go taste it because I did want to make a comment. A lot of our recipes, we try to do them so that they're quick, efficient, under 30 minutes or under 40 minutes. And that is all great. And there's a place for everything. But when you have time and you make something like this, it's just such a treat. And it's also a way to use those cuts that we were talking about that normally are less, that if you can get them, if you treat them the way they're supposed to be treated, will render a very delicious, protein packed meal, which now Emily, is that okay? Yum, yum,
It's
yum.
very good.
This
I'm
is very,
focusing on eating.
okay.
But I do want to say, because this is a question I know that maybe people are thinking, they're like, Emily, that was a lot of soy sauce. How salty is it? It's not salty. Remember,
No,
we added 2 cups of water to it and it pulled out the flavor of the beef and intermingled with the sauce. So it's not salty at all. And if you are still worried, if you don't believe me, just use a sodium reduced soy sauce. And then you might say, I think I need a pinch of salt.
you can always add, you can't take
Mhm.
away. So these are the things where these are the choices that you make. So, as much as we'd like to sit here and watch Emily finish eating, that, oh, actually, I have okay, so somebody actually has a last question here. Let's say there's no soy sauce available.
Okay.
What could you use with everything else you have without soy sauce?
So that's the major flavor here that we're
Yes.
we're using. So if you wanted to, you need something to kind of give you that umami flavor. So you could use something like beef broth and a little bit of sherry, for example. You could also use a little bit of tomato paste
Yeah.
with the beef broth to kind of enhance it. You could also kind of use some wine, believe it or not, and that will change the profile a little bit. But soy sauce also has that little bit of acidity. So you could use something like a white wine to offer that bit of acidity. And it also help break down the meat as it's cooking because that's the soy sauce kind of does that as well as it's seasoning it. And then for sure, you might need to add a little bit more flavor. Now, if you are a big fan of big flavor, you could use something like fish sauce in here. And that would definitely replace the soy sauce, but that's a very distinct flavor when you use a lot of it. So make sure that you love fish sauce because it does kind of dilute a little bit in the braising, but it does offer up a great flavor.
If this is something you're really like, I would start with, if you've never braised, I would start with one recipe like this. Follow the recipe exactly because Emily's like, did you follow the recipe? I'm like, not exactly. And it's like, well, that's why it didn't work out because I get inspired and then I like to do my own thing. But I would follow it. figure out like, wow, I really like that. And now you want to try other flavor profiles. There are so many recipes that you can find online, and then you can start experimenting with, other ingredients. So, Emily, thank you. Pardon me, trying to get ahead of what's gonna, I know it's coming, this big cough. Oh, everyone, so many people are thanking you. Oh, and I go, thank you. You're welcome. So many people. So I do want to share. I don't want you to go just yet, everyone. So thank you to ThinkBeef.ca and to Emily, of course, because with their support, we're able to do programs like this. But we want to let you know that we are doing our holiday baking demo. It's going to be Thursday, December 11th. And it's going to be later in the day slash evening, depending on where you are in the country. This is all on the website. You can go ahead and register. And we had so much fun with our holiday baking demo last year. We're going to do another one. It'll be the last demo of 2025. I can't believe I'm saying that. So grab a cup of tea or coffee or whatever beverage it is that you would like. And we're going to have some fun while Emily shows us how to make fruited holiday buns with ingredients that all have nutrients that we need. So we thought, let's just put them all together into something delicious. And of course, we've spoken about the menopause and bone health webinar we have in January. It's all going to be questions that are submitted. That's the webinar topic. So when you register, put your question in, and that's how we're going to build out that topic. So wonderful on that. There we go. Did want to let everyone know it is Osteoporosis Month. We are also leading up to Giving Tuesday, which is Tuesday, December 2nd. Uh, we welcome all gifts to help continue our work. We have a match, $10,000 match. Up until the first $10,000, your donation will be matched for Giving Tuesday if you make it by the end of December 2nd. And of course, there is still a bit of a Canada Post disruption. So, to really make sure that you get that tax receipt, you can very easily make your donation online on our website, or you can call our office. The number's all there. You can get on our website, all the information's there as well. So, thank you. We are very appreciative of all the support we get. And of course, subscribe to our newsletter. Many of you today for this cooking demo came from Facebook and Instagram. So, welcome to our new people and to our happy cooking community. Lots of information on the website. We wish you all well. We wish you all to stay healthy and happy cooking. And we hope that we will see you all in December. Oh, look at Emily. She's a rock star. She's showing me that we did not give away the apron yet. So, and yes, I do. And I have to stop sharing because I can't see the name until I'm so sorry. Here I am going, you must eat the dish. Yes. Caroline Borns from Okotoks, Alberta. Congratulations. You are getting an apron. So we yay for you. And oh, look, somebody else actually wrote, where's the apron? So apologies and thank you. And this is why teamwork makes the dream work. We're all part of the team that we're getting this done. So congratulations to everyone. See you in December at our last cooking demo for 2025. Happy cooking.
Bye, everybody.
Bye,
Thanks for joining
everyone.
us.